rebuilding. The catastrophic failure, a new start. Physically, mentally, our careers, our businesses. Step back, first step, next step. The driver in me just wants to get it done tomorrow. We'll do this, do that, let's move this, where are we at with this? You build some confidence, build some self-esteem, start to feel better about yourself. The Silverback Blueprint Podcast, a show for men over 40. We focus on getting stronger, staying motivated, building discipline, creating a community, and becoming truly happy. Hey guys, welcome to episode 114 of the Silverback Blueprint Podcast. Our well-being lies in our actions. We talk all the time about having goals and a vision and determination to get to those things and to do those things and to accomplish and to strive to be the better version of ourselves, the ultimate version of ourselves. Striving for our goals is admirable. But what do we do if fate intervenes? What do we do if we fall short of that goal? If we put all our eggs into that one basket and we miss it, what happens to our sense of happiness? What happens to our sense of self-worth if it's all tied up and our whole focus is if we don't achieve this one thing, we fail? If we miss that objective, if we miss a deadline, we need to live more in our actions. We need to live more in the how we're doing it, why we're doing it. The structure of the habit, the structure of our day to move forward is far more important than the achievement, if that makes sense. We often hear it's the journey, not the destination, that we learn the most from and we get the most from. And I believe it's really, really true. Because if it's all about winning the game, we're not going to win every game. And if that's all that matters to us, we're going to suffer greatly. If it's all that matters to us, we're going to take shortcuts. If it's all that matters to us, we're going to cheat. Especially if we start having failure. And failure is part of the game. Failure happens no matter what. But I think the quality of the failure is super important. Now, I know that might sound a little strange, but the quality of the failure makes a big difference. Did we fail because we didn't try? Well, that's shitty. That's horrible. Did we try and work hard and plan and work and then fail? Then that's admirable. And that's what we grow from, because we're going to get things from that we wouldn't have gotten had we not even tried. You know, if we lose in the first round, it's tough. If we lose in the finals, I think it's tougher but better at the same time, because we went further, we went deeper, we went longer than we thought we could. In fact, if we realize that it's in the actions that we take, we'll often go much further and deeper, even when we fail. We've all been in a situation where we see people give up. We see it in games. We see it in sports, whether we've played it, watched our children play it, or watched it on TV. You see a point where that team that's losing really accepts the loss at a certain point, because we see it in their body language, in their effort level, in their attitude. The shoulders slump. Then the hustle drops. They're just trying haphazardly to make the play. They've already lost. They've resigned themselves that they've lost. And then they don't have the strength to keep trying to push through. Then we see the team that loses, but they've battled the entire way through it. The series, through the game, up to the finals. To me, that's how you want to lose. That's how you want to fail. And in fact, because when you see it, that they're just determined and they won't go away and they won't die. That's one of the reasons they often make it further to begin with. And you can take pride in failing that way. You can take pride because of the actions you took to get to that point. And when it comes to a success, when we achieve the success, most often we find the success anticlimactic. or we get just to the other side, just the moment after we achieve the success, we get to the other side and it feels empty. Why? Because so much time and effort was spent to get to the success. The success is there, and then the noise dies down. It's quiet again. Too quiet. So we need to have goals, and I like using the bigger word vision because inside a vision are multiple goals. Instead of using the word goals, let's use steps, levels. So if our vision is big and strong and powerful, motivating and fulfilling, we're going to have goals and steps along the way to get to the vision, because the vision is bigger. The vision is further out. So to get from point A to point B, if point B is pretty far out, we have to do a lot of things along the way. A lot of things have to happen and be successful along the way to get there. So if you're driving, from your house to the corner store, it's no big accomplishment getting there. You can get there even with the cars on empty. But if you're sitting at home and you decide you want to drive 12 hours away to an event or a situation, a lot more things have to happen because that's a bigger goal, a bigger vision, a bigger destination. So if you don't plan properly, that's going to be a lot harder to do. You'll get lost. You'll run out of food. You'll run out of fuel. You'll run out of money because you didn't think about the 2 hotel stays you might need because you're going 4 days, or how much a hotel stay costs. People get caught up in that shit all the time. So they fail for the wrong reasons. They fail because they didn't give the objective enough respect. They didn't prepare. I know this trip is coming up. I want to do this trip. I know this trip's going to cost me $1,500. I don't have $1,500. So what's my plan to get the $1,500? Put it on my credit card. Well, that works a couple of times till you hit your limit. Then you have to come up with a plan to pay that shit off. Or put money aside till you have the $1,500. Or use your credit card, but know that for the next 3 months, you're going to pay $500 a month plus interest to get it covered. All 3 will get you to that destination. But all 3 have a different outcome on you, on your stress level, on your enjoyment level. And the odds of success are greater when it's better planned, when respect to the endeavor has been given, the proper amount of respect, attention, and detail has been given. Sometimes we set the bar so low that when we achieve things, we get nothing from it. Because in our hearts and in our minds, we know that was way below our capacity. Beast mode. Beast mode isn't going to the gym. Because that's the easy part. That's the lowest level of commitment. Beast mode is going to the gym and working hard every time you're there and being consistent and going when you don't want to go and going early because you don't have time to go later on in the day, and planning your food and having goals and objectives and having a training journal and logging everything and working hard. Even when it's hard to do, when it's almost impossible to do. Now that's beast mode. We've lowered our bar so much in a lot of things that we do that we call ourselves beast mode and badass for stuff for just fucking doing the bare minimum entry level shit. And that's why sometimes these words now mean nothing. They mean nothing to the people truly being beast mode and truly doing things because we've watered it down and dumbed it down so much. Everybody gets a fucking trophy for showing up. What the fuck is that? We're worried about making everyone feel good for an instant. Well, you know what? People need to suffer, fail, and struggle so that when they do succeed, they can appreciate the success and realize that to have the success, a lot of work has to happen. A lot of failure will happen. A lot of pitfalls have to be avoided. A lot of focus and consistency has to happen. If we're trying to do weight loss and we're not losing weight, but then we're like, well, but I feel good about myself. That's, to me, a failure. If you worked really hard and you lost 5 pounds and that was hard and that's the first time you lose 5 pounds, that's amazing. But don't change the rules because you don't want to put the work in. Don't change the result because you didn't do it and you don't want to feel bad about yourself. Fuck you, feel bad about failure. Make failure uncomfortable so you don't want to keep doing it. stop enabling yourself, stop enabling others into mediocrity, because that's what we do. We want to protect ourselves. That's our normal reaction. We want to be safe. We want to protect our children. We want to protect people we love. But you know what? Your kids have to make mistakes. Your kids have to stumble. They have to fail, have consequence, so they learn that if they don't want this to happen again, they need to do what's required of them not to do it, not to have it happen. A couple of years ago, I think grade 7 or grade 8, it's a few years ago, my son, very smart kid, very good kid, very polite kid, but he went through this phase where he was being rude to his teachers. And we heard about it. And that's not acceptable to us. So we went into school with him, sat in front of those two teachers. Now the problem is, my son, if he thinks you're an idiot, he has a hard time not reacting like you're an idiot. So strength in one hand, a weakness in the other, because you got to learn to deal with people. You got to learn to accept people and understand that that person that you're reporting to may be an idiot, but until you're above them, you got to deal with them. And telling them that they're an idiot, which is what he was doing, when they're in a position above you, isn't the smartest way to do things. That's not how you get through life. But he was being rude about it, and that wasn't acceptable. So there was a school trip coming up at the end of the year to go to Toronto. And we sat there, my wife and I, and my son, and the two teachers, and the vice principal, I think, at the time. And we made a big deal about this. We're the ones who called the meeting. We're the ones who realized that, hey, this has to be dealt with. And we have to show our son that we don't do this. And when you act like this, these are consequences that are going to happen. So we sat there, and we looked at him, and he said, you know what? You're not going on that school trip. That was a big thing, grade 8, going to Toronto. All your friends were like, we've had this talk before. It hasn't improved. You are not doing this trip. That didn't go over too well for him. He was upset, as he should be. It wasn't easy for me. It wasn't easy for my wife. We didn't like being the bad guys. But we're like, we can't reward this kind of shitty behavior, because in the world, it doesn't work that way. In the world, if you keep telling your supervisor he's an idiot, you know what? You're never going to be above your supervisor. And then your day-to-day is going to get shittier. And if you don't like something, then move on to another job. But in the meantime, you have to learn how to work in a situation, in social situations. You have to learn how to carry yourself. I'm not talking about kissing ass, sucking up, or brown-nosing. That shit's bullshit. But you have to learn when to bite your tongue and when to speak your mind, and when it's worth the chaos and the fallout from it. That's it. That's all we want to teach them, because that's the way the world works. I've been audited by Revenue Canada. I fucking hate it. But every time I've gone in there, I'm always polite, I'm courteous, and I'm holding my anger in. And you know what? It always goes better because of that. Because even if they're wrong and I get pissed, in that situation, they have the power. They have the power to make my life miserable. They have the power to levy more things, and then I have to fight even harder to get through them, to undo them. But I don't kiss ass. If I have a question, I say it. If I have a comment, I say it. But it's done with respect. That's what my son had to learn. Needless to say, within days, his attitude changed. Within weeks, those same teachers were sending messages back to us about how much has improved. The vice principal at one point says, you know what, he's turned it around so much, and we knew he would and stuff like that. We're okay with him going on the trip. But you know what? My wife and I weren't. There was no trip that year. And in fact, we put him in a summer camp. And we put him in a summer camp for leadership, to teach him that, because he's smarter and because he's popular, he's a natural leader. And with leadership comes responsibility, because people are always watching. And if he's cool and people like him and he works hard, people will be motivated and inspired to work hard. But if he's a cut up and a fuck up, people will be inspired to be cut ups and fuck ups. So my wife and I, and this actually gets really funny, we laugh about it now. So she rolls him in this summer camp, a leadership camp with the city. And we're like, great, leadership. They're going to, make him walk on fucking, lava and fucking, stand on one leg on a 40-foot pole, right? That's the stuff we're envisioning. Turns out it's a fucking camp to teach them how to be camp counselors for their city camps for the kids. So it was fucking horrible for him. He was like doing arts and crafts and having to work with kids and stuff like that. So he was miserable. And my wife and I were like, oh my God. But you know what? We're like, fuck it. You had 4 weeks, you got to do it. Because that was part of the gig, right? That was part of the consequence of what happened. I'll never forget, he comes home and I would ask him every day. And in my mind, I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. Hey buddy, how was your day? He goes, today, Dad, we had to learn about the responsibility rock. He goes, we had a rock, and it came to a point where we had to paint the rock. And I'm like, excellent. I go, how did you do it? He goes, I took the rock, I dropped it into the jar of the paint, I pulled it out, and I said, there, I've painted my responsibility rock. I go, what did the counselor say? They're like, well, you know, and this kind of stuff. I looked at him, I go, I'd have done the same thing, buddy. That was pretty cool. And we fucking laughed about it. I could just see him there picking up his responsibility rock, not impressed at all. Everyone painting it like an egg and stuff like that at Easter. And I could see my son just dropping it into the paint and pulling it back out. We laughed because we all knew that he had learned a lesson. And he had a consequence. And then he had turned it around to the point he was like, you know what? I accept it. I got to get through this. I'm going to do it. And that's all there is to it. But I let him do it in his own style. But it made a difference. There was a consequence. His actions are what led him to that. So his actions are what lead him now to more positive things. And that was tough as a parent to do, but it had to be done. In our opinion, it meant a lot. When our kids act out, compared to a lot of other situations we see, we know we've got good kids, but we still have lines in the sand. We still have things that are acceptables and not acceptables in our family. And we've had parents tell us stuff like, oh, geez, I wish I was the only problem I had with my kid. And I get it. But it's because we don't allow certain things to happen and we hold consequences. How many times have you seen that parent in the mall and their kid's fucking freaking out and doing all kinds of crazy shit, running around, you know, putting shit on fire? And then you hear the mom, oh, Johnny, you know, that's not nice. You know, we're going to leave. But you know what happens? They don't fucking leave. And you know what? Little Johnny knows that shit. In our house, it was to the count of 3. And if I hit 3, the shit hit the fan. I'd get up and I would deal with it. I didn't beat my kids. I didn't abuse them, but there was consequence. To this day, my 15 and 17-year-old, when I start counting to 3, they fucking roll their eyes. They get pissed, but they know at 3, something's going to happen. I've seen it repeatedly where parents try to get their kids to do stuff and they're trying to do the counting and they're at, 83. Why? Because little Johnny knows that mom doesn't get up at 3. She repeats herself. She doesn't get up at 5. She repeats herself. Or she makes other veiled threats, or the dad makes other veiled threats that the kid fucking knows is never going to happen. We're not teaching them a life skill that way. If you don't pay your taxes, you know what happens? You get fucked up. You don't pay your hydro bill, you know what happens? You have no hydro. But those lessons need to be taught much earlier overall. So when we go back to the actions and towards moving towards goals and having failures, if we open a business and we have trouble paying utilities, then we understand that we need to cash management better. We need to have a budget. We need to grow sales. All those things come to light because there is no light, because the hydro's getting turned off. So because of that, we'll start working on a better budgeting system. We'll start looking at our spending. We'll focus more on our sales. We'll realize we might have to cut other things. But in that failure initially, we understand that we need to do things to improvement. And it's in that improvement that comes from failure and to avoid future failure that we get better. And being in business, sometimes, the biggest sense of accomplishment is making it through the month, because it was a tough month, but everybody got paid and everyone got paid. There's a lot to be said for that. So if you have if you're sitting there and you say, hey, I want to be profitable every month and I need to see X, Y, Z, but you have a month where, you know what, it just got tight, sales dropped, things happen, unexpected bills, but you still got through it. You can sit there and say, I was a failure. I didn't have X amount of dollars profit that month. And it's true. But then you can also sit back and take pride in the fact that the actions you took and are taking also got you through that tough month and made you a better business person, made you a little smarter, made you have to think a little bit more. And to me, that's what the whole point of today is. it's in our actions. It's our well-being. You know, if we can walk away from a situation and we did everything we could possibly and it didn't work out, we're okay. We'll be okay. We're going to be okay on the inside. We're not going to go home and want to punch the wall, kick the cat, or drink the booze. Because when we come back from those things and we do those things, it's because deep down, I truly believe it's because we know we didn't do everything we should. Or we didn't do what we should. We were lazy, or we're neglectful. And we know that deep down inside, and it comes out in frustration and anger. It comes out in us being mad at our kids for no reason or shouting at our spouse for no reason. Because the reason that, the situation that we're in when it happens has nothing to do with why we're really upset. So when we know we've done everything we could in the situation, when we lay on the field of battle exhausted from the effort, whether we were victorious or not, we're okay with it because we know we did everything we could. And even if we have a small disappointment from not being successful, we know that there was nothing that we didn't do to try and get there. And to me, that is what this means about our well-being being in our actions. That's all I have to say about that today, guys. Head on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating. Is a rating? Yes, 5-star rating, positive review. Head on over to hostilegear.com. Use the code Silverback, save 20% on some magnificent merchandise. And I'll talk to you guys later.